The book I'm currently working on explores the recent, current, and near future proposals to upgrade New York's Pennsylvania Station, the place commuters and travelers love to hate. It's an urgent problem combining infrastructure, real estate, and civics, and it just might make or break the future of our nation's largest city. This is the faster and more time-sensitive of my two books. After some reflection about both, I've decided that this book deserves to move to the front of the queue toward publication, because it's about an important place that serves millions of people, causes immediate problems on multiple levels every day, and is approaching a dramatic redesign and reconstruction, depending on various pending decisions by political officials, technical experts, and economic power brokers. Ideally, those decisions will also involve the general public, and part of my argument about this place is that substantive public participation will have a lot to do with whether this rebuilding becomes a once-in-a-lifetime civic miracle or a massive, regrettable, squandered opportunity. A major train station serves the whole public, and I believe the public deserves to be informed about and involved in the goals and details of a new station's planning, design, and construction. Penn Station as we know it, the underground warren of cramped spaces and confusing signage bearing the huge blunt cylinder of Madison Square Garden on its back, is the successor to a better and beloved building, the original McKim Mead and White rail station that was demolished in 1963 over the objections of an outnumbered faction of protesters. Losing that demolition battle was so traumatic to civic-minded New Yorkers that the city's Landmarks Preservation Commission arose as a reaction. The urban preservation movement here owes much of its form and energy to a collective desire to prevent similar cases of short-sighted, self-inflicted damage from ever recurring. Scores of commentators on the old and new Penn stations have quoted or paraphrased Yale architecture scholar Vincent Scully's famous comparison. "Through it one entered the city like a god. Perhaps it was really too much. One scuttles in now like a rat." People often skip Scully's middle sentence, "perhaps it was really too much," and I'd argue that part's pivotal if we want to understand McKim's building in full and useful context. Alternative designs for the station have proliferated among architects for years, and in 2023 several of them came to public attention. A developer-driven plan that neighbors and activists had feared and assailed for years, attempting to pay for upgrades to the station through 10 large private office towers right as the COVID pandemic and the rise of home-based or hybrid work were correlating with a collapse in the city's commercial real estate market, was suddenly put on hold by both the governor and the developer. A public-private partnership involving two major American architecture firms and an Italian infrastructure company offered one compelling alternative vision, and several civic groups offered their own designs, in some cases linked with stringent technical critiques of the long-standing inefficiencies, safety hazards, and inherent obsolescence of Penn Station's operation as a rail terminal rather than a through-running station, a function for which it is arguably physically well-suited, and which transportation engineers consider the current global best practice. I had the good fortune to draw an assignment for the Architect's newspaper about the proposed changes to Penn Station. Initially a large single article, the editors titled "Gods and Rats Rejoice." This piece led to more assignments as the story evolved. The successive proposals appeared before the public. Questions arose about what options might open up should Madison Square Garden move to a new site nearby, and the three railroads using the station, Amtrak, the Metropolitan Transit Authority and Long Island Railroad, and New Jersey Transit, requested coverage of their proposals as well. These articles, along with the invaluable perspective of a senior colleague, an invited overview presentation by a preservation-minded subcommittee of the American Institute of Architects of New York, and further ongoing research and reporting, form the backbone of my proposed book on Penn Station. The manuscript bears the working title, "Lead Us Out, New York on the Brink of a Rail Renaissance." This title alludes to a punning phrase that various writers and wisecrackers have circulated for years, riffing on the Lord's Prayer, Matthew 6:13, "Lead us not into Penn Station." Historians and the architectural preservation community have documented in great detail how New Yorkers and interstate travelers were led into the grim and unsafe station, as well as what we lost when its monumental predecessor was demolished. Some of my work rests on the shoulders of these existing chroniclers, and I've gained access to many of the architects, engineers, civic advocates, and other authoritative spokespersons who were involved with Penn. In the spring of 2025, the project took another major step forward when Norman McGrath, a renowned architectural photographer trained as a structural engineer, whose studies of the original station during its demolition are an essential part of its history, invited me to collaborate on a book with him. I'm honored to note that Lead Us Out will be that book, jointly authored, merging my reporting and interviewing with Norman's images and insights, particularly into the aspects of Charles McKim's design that were always more problematic than most observers recognize. Unlike most New Yorkers and other commentators, Norman has direct lived experience of the monumental station we lost. The opportunity to work with him and learn from him adds inimitable visual and historical dimensions to this project that will distinguish it from any other treatment of the Penn renovations and the surrounding controversies. Yet the book is not intended simply to recapitulate or rephrase the known history. Norman and I agree with commentators who situate the potential for a newer station at this critical site, improved in functionality and passenger service as well as aesthetics, within the larger context of transitions in the economic competitiveness, transportation infrastructure, mode choices, and demographic configuration of the region and the nation. The urgent need to improve Penn Station coincides with the global need to rethink carbon-intensive forms of travel, since rail is a vastly more energy-efficient way to move people than automobiles or airplanes, even more so as parts of the electrical grid convert from fossil fuel sources to more reliance on renewables, and with the emergence of high-speed rail service as a necessary, not aspirational component of a city, region, and nation that strive to keep pace with peers around the world. As we are writing this book, the interactions among the railroads, public agencies from municipal to federal levels, transportation engineers and other professionals, private interests, community and activist organizations, and the general public are in a fluid and critical state. The current government is sending signals that are confusing at best. On one hand, announcing a fast timetable for transformation of Penn Station. On the other hand, jeopardizing funding for the Gateway tunnels, a critical component of any viable and safe upgrade of New York's rail network. The chance to undo the civic damage of the 1963 demolition coincides with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to transform regional and national rail service in ways that determine the health of metropolitan New York on every imaginable level. The time is ripe for this book to contribute to the public discourse, Norman and I are convinced, and timely financial contributions will make an enormous difference in how quickly and thoroughly we can produce it. Thanks for your attention so far, and please don't hesitate to get in touch if you'd like to hear more about Lead Us Out.
BWI Airport, and New Carrollton. Passengers should proceed to track 14 west.